So you started your publication after a round of layoffs at The Athletic, which you described as a dream job. Why did you decide to go fully independent instead of looking for a position elsewhere?
Well, a number of reasons. Arizona is a very challenging sports media market. It has always been that way. I've been here for 25 years, actually. And whether it was newspapers or online sites that I was working for, readership was always challenging in this market for a variety of reasons. The teams haven't had much success over their history. It's a transplant market, so a lot of or a lot of people tend to root for their old teams rather than jumping on board the Arizona teams. There's challenging demographics here. There's a lot of challenges to this market, and I think if you talk to anyone, ESPN, CBS, Fox, they've all had the same challenges in this market. So when I looked around to see what was really still available to do what I wanted to do, and that was still cover the NHL and the Coyotes, the options were just so limited. One of the newspapers that I used to write for here actually had gone under, and the Arizona Republic has taken sort of a part-time basis in covering the Coyotes. They really don't treat it as a full-time beat. Financially, it really isn't a situation that would have worked for me. And then the other local sites just weren't options either. So honestly, I was at a point when the Athletic had all the layoffs where I was thinking, okay, is this the end? Am I through with sports journalism? And I had a friend who's actually a VC guy in New York say, hey, give Substack a try. You have to check it out. So I figured, why not? I'll give this a shot before I bail on sports journalism. Finally, this industry that has been trying to kick me out for the last 20 years. And it was amazing to see the response that I got from the Coyotes audience that I had here already in Arizona. I had to charge a certain rate, clearly, to go paid to make it work for me. And a lot of people jumped on board in spite of the fact that we were in the midst of a pause in the season for COVID. And I launched in July, and in the entire time that I've been in existence, the Coyotes have played 9 games. So it was a major challenge to try and get followers. And yet here I am. I've already achieved what I consider sustainability at this point.
Definitely. So cool. Did you already have a subscriber list when you came to Substack, and how did you grow that list initially?
I knew a number of followers, but really what I used was Twitter to sort of get the word out that I was launching this venture. I have a lot of followers, almost 18,000 followers on Twitter. Most of them are there to follow me for the Coyotes. I have covered other sports in the past, but I think by and large, people know me for my Coyotes coverage. So that's really how I announced it initially. And then, I got a lot of email addresses through that. And that's how I started.
You did like a survey or something when you first launched. Can you share a little bit about how that worked?
Yeah, I wanted to know what people would be looking for in my coverage. I'd been at the Athletic for 2 years, and as you mentioned, it was a dream job. I got to work with really the best hockey writers around North America. It was amazing to be a part of that team, but again, some of the financial difficulties that they encountered with COVID, and then this market in particular, led to what it led to. We lost 8 of 10 people at the Athletic Arizona. But when I launched this, I figured I was going to have the same sort of access to the Coyotes. In fact, I had gotten that insured by the people at the Coyotes before I ever started the website. So I really just wanted to ask people what they liked about my coverage at the Athletic and what else they thought I could do. I just wanted to get a sense of what this community could be. I really understood from the start that this could be more of a community even than the Athletic was, because it was just me. I could be far more responsive, far more agile in terms of what my readers wanted. So that was a great launching point to get their feedback and help craft the site based on their feedback.
Cool. And can you walk us through your launch announcement and the whole paid launch a little bit? Like, how did you feel going into it and afterwards? And what worked really well, and what would you have done differently?
How I felt going into it was scared to death. I had no idea if it was going to succeed. And I launched, I think, 1 week before training camps began. When the NHL paused in March, there was some uncertainty whether they were even going to complete the season or the postseason. They decided to just go right into the playoffs. And they held a 2-week training camp right before the playoffs. I launched a week before that, and all of my content was free for that full week to give people an idea of what I was going to do. But I told them all along, once training camp started, it was all going to go behind a paywall, and we'll see where it goes from there. I'm sorry, I think I forgot the second half of your question.
So I was just wondering from that, what worked really well, or is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think at that point, I really understood what they wanted from me, both from working at the Athletic for 2 years and then from the survey that I had put out. People really wanted more in-depth coverage. It wasn't, you can get a game story or quick news stories just about anywhere. But what I did for 2 years at The Athletic was give them in-depth analysis, in-depth features where I just went, multiple layers deeper than I think journalism allows a lot of people to do this. And in this day and age, based on finances, based on staffing, based on time constraints. So that's really what I tried to roll out, was these deeper features and analyses to start with, and people responded to it.
And most of your work is behind a paywall right now. How did you decide content-wise what you wanted to make free versus paid?
I wasn't sure how to handle that. Actually, I had a really good talk with Hamish actually about that. And he said some things to me that were actually counterintuitive. He said to me early on, make your best stuff free, because the people that are already behind your paywall behind your paywall are true believers. They're the people that are there already. They're going to follow you no matter what you do, but you want to bring in more people. So one of the things that I started doing on Sundays, I call it the big read, which is not a terribly creative title for a story, but it's a really in-depth piece that I'll do. And I always make that free. And that has been a good way to pull people in. I've actually started covering Arizona State's hockey team as well, this Division I men's program that's out in the middle of nowhere, so far away from all the other programs. And I've gotten some good feedback from that as well.
And can you discuss, is that the sort of like a long form read that you're making free?
Yes. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's a long form read. I'll dive into a variety of topics. For instance, with ASU hockey, they don't play in a conference, unlike most of the college hockey teams. So when COVID hit, all of the conferences decided to play within their own conference and not play out of conference games. And that left ASU out in the cold. So ASU did this crazy thing where they decided to play their entire season on the road in the Big Ten. They're literally staying on the road for 36 days for the first half of their season. They'll come home for 2 weeks, and then they'll go back and play 16 more games, probably 40 some days on the road. So I just dove into the logistics of having an entire season on the road, what that meant from a safety standpoint, from the equipment, the gear that they have to haul around with them, lodging, transportation, and did a deep dive on that. And that was well received.
That's cool. And then behind the paywall, you have kind of more of the play-by-play, like more granular coverage.
Yeah, I'll do notebooks, which is a bunch of quick hit notes. I have something called Neutral Zone that I do frequently. I'll do some of my features on the Coyotes or ASU will be behind the paywall. And then I'll have more, news stories, breaking news, things like that behind the paywall. But I do throw some of that stuff out for free as well. For instance, the Coyotes captain, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, they tried to trade him this offseason, and it was a very sort of contentious situation. So when I finally got a hold of him, I was the first to interview him. I decided I should make that free so that everybody could see what he had to say.
Makes sense. And then how did you grow your paid subscriptions in that first month after your initial launch and announcement?
A lot of it was really word of mouth. I have such an audience on Twitter that I have to admit that made it really easy for me. I have such a following, and it's not just my following. When I would announce something or when I would tweet a story, it gets retweeted by national writers. So it grows exponentially from there. And I think more and more people became aware. So I would say Twitter, more than anything, made more people aware of my site.
Cool. And we've talked about this sort of throughout, but you cover this like really specific niche, which is Arizona Coyotes ice hockey team, which is based in Phoenix, Arizona.
Exactly. Sounds like a terrible model, doesn't it?
It does. From the outside, you look at that and you think like, yeah, how do you make a living doing that? Which makes it all the more impressive that you're doing it. And I find that super inspiring. How have you found that going independent has given you more freedom to pursue this niche topic that you love, and why right now?
Absolutely, it given me more freedom. I'm not answering to anyone else, right? I don't have an editor. I don't have anyone overseeing what I do. It's up to me. And part of that, there's a responsibility there. Yesterday, when I was writing my last Sunday read, there were a couple of times where I was like, my God, I've been spending so much time on this story. Do I really want to go this extra mile? And then I thought, oh, of course I do. I have to. I owe this to my readers. So I do think it's given me a lot of freedom to really pursue whatever I want to pursue, whatever ideas and whatever direction I want to go with those. But I also think it gives me an incredible responsibility to my readers because they're literally coming just for me. There's nothing else that they're here for. So I had better deliver.
Cool. Last question. What advice do you have for writers that want to launch paid subscriptions but are feeling nervous about going all in?
Well, that's a broad question. First off, I have to wonder, do you have an audience? You have to be able to reach an audience and you have to figure out if there is in fact a market for it. And I can't even say that I knew for certain there would be a market for this product. I knew I had a lot of followers, but I didn't know if they would pay for it. But maybe doing something exploratory like the survey that I did might help people get a better understanding of whether there is in fact a market for this.